Hello everyone and welcome back to the video. In today's video, we're going to be going over Patchwork, which is a national happening this weekend, or a B+ tier. You got a couple of invaders coming in, most notably from Mexico and Guatemala. For our top 16, you have Yez, Dark, Wizzy, Vendetta, and Loaf as our 13th seeds, Kobe, Omega, Goblin, and Deathspade as our 9th seeds, Peanut and MBD as our 7th seeds, Send and Andric as our 5th seeds, Shining Mark at 4th, Cosmos at 3rd, MK Big Boss at 2nd, and then seeded to win the whole thing is Mute. So for the sake of this video, we're pretty much going to be staying entirely within the top 24, though there are a handful of players that I do want to mention. You have Fusic, Sen, and WebJP all showing up at this event, so that's probably your top 3 Sheiks in NA right now. Maybe you would sneak Void onto that list, but he isn't super active, so I'm not going to. WebJP is definitely going to be your frontrunner, and also someone that I could see even top 8 in this event. I have been very impressed by him as of late. He's been looking absolutely incredible, so someone you for sure have to keep your eyes on. You have Mighty Dialga at this event as well, and Bayonetta is a character that's been having a lot of success in the current meta, so I can see him popping off. Danny recently was able to get top 8 at a Coinbox, and I know it is Coinbox and online results are a little bit different, but it's still really impressive to get that far in a bracket, and offline to online skills or the other way around, they do translate very well. We've been able to see this. I mean, you look at all the top players in Smash Ultimate right now, half of them are Wi-Fi warriors, and Danny isn't even a Wi-Fi warrior. That's just one example of him doing well, and he's done well in the past. Wolf's another character that I also just have a lot of faith in right now. I mean, you're just never really out of the game. You can steal stocks at any moment with a forward air into a back air, into a side B conversion. There is so many ways, but Danny is an incredible player, and I need to see that Wolf this weekend because at Coinbox, it was cooking. Also, I should mention you have Lucky at that tournament, who's probably the best Piranha Plant player in the world, so if you want to watch some Piranha Plant gameplay, you should definitely watch this tournament because this may be one of the only opportunities you have to see it. And the first two players I want to talk about are going to be Kobe and Toast, two of the front runners for the best Young Link in the world. You also have Z3 in here, who's another really good Young Link player. But for Toast and Kobe, you have Toast, who has a bracket of unknowns, and you have Kobe, who has a bracket of knowns. And what I mean by that is Toast is supposed to lose against Omega, who he hasn't played in 3 years, so this doesn't really mean anything. And then if he does beat Omega, he would go against Sen, who he's never played. And if he beats Sen, he would go against Shiny Mark, who he's never played. And in the loser side of bracket, I know you can't see it here, but Toast is supposed to lose to Dark Wizzy, a player that he's never played. Now, if you look at Kobe's bracket, he's supposed to lose to Peanut, who he does have a losing record against. Now, granted, they've only played once since then. Kobe has gotten a lot better. This was 11 months ago. He's won a regional within that time in Cirque du CFL. He's clearly improved as a player, so that could go into his favor. And if it does go into Kobe's favor, he would go up against Mute. So as you can see, he has a very strong record against 5-1, and he's won the last 5 encounters. Like, these have been very good for Toast. So if he's able to get that upset, he would get himself into the top 8. And in the loser side of bracket, if he does end up losing to Peanut when he's supposed to, he would go into MBD. And he doesn't have an amazing record versus MBD, but their last handful of sets, they've been trading back and forth. Now, the only ones that we super care about are going to be these two in Combo Breaker and CEO because they are the recent ones. But even then, Kobe wins one and MVD wins one. So Kobe has a bracket where there's a lot of players that he's played before. They can make adaptations on him. He can make adaptations on them. Some of those matchups are winning. Some of those are losing. And Toast bracket is pretty much just, we have no idea how it's going to go. So let me know who you guys think is going to be the higher placing only. If I have to put my money on one, I would probably bet Kobe just because he has been doing a little bit better as of late. And then if he's able to beat Mutas, he gets into the top 8 and doesn't have to deal with any of that losers on the ref. For Toast to get into the top 8, he would still have to beat Shiny Mark, which I think is a very tall task. But I don't think it's impossible for him either because he's an incredible player. Regardless, let me know who you guys think the highest placing I think will be. Maybe it'll be Z3. I want to talk about our 3 low-tier heroes as well. At this event, you have Fawn, Krieg, and Yez, but I feel like Yez and Fawn are kind of playing opposite kind of bad characters. And what I mean by that is Duck Hunt is a character that isn't very good, but has a lot of setups, a lot of minute little things that you can learn about them, and you have so many intricate ways to deal with stuff, and you have Ike, who is a character that has a really good nair, like really good in air. Duck Hunt doesn't really have that really good nair. Besides Frisbee, Frisbee is actually a really good tool, can as well, but it doesn't easily glue the kit together like Ike does, and that makes Duck Hunt a lot less predictable, and it makes Ike a lot more predictable. So Duck Hunt's a character that you're going to need more setups in your general game plan, but Ike is a character that you're going to need to be more tricky in your neutral because people are going to be way more expecting of what you're going to do. And then Marth, I feel like kind of sits on that weird boundary of just being a sword character. Like, there are some intricate setups that you need to know, especially the tipper spacing. If you don't know your tipper spacing, you're not going to have any success with the character. Now, Krieg definitely knows that because he's one of, if not the best in the Marth in the world right now. Like, Krieg is legitimately crazy crazy with this character. And honestly, you can make arguments for that for Yez being the best, like Fawn being the best duck gun. I mean, his run at Xanadu is actually incredible, but these are all players that could perform at this event, but I doubt all of them will. If I had to guess, I'd say that one of them pops off super hard, and if I had to put my mana in one of them, it would be Fawn, because Duck Hunt is a character that you can mix up with so much. Again, Duck Hunt, you can get really, really tricky and get some big wins along the way. We've seen Fawn do that in the past, but we've also seen Yez and Krieg be able to get some of those big wins, so I could see both those players popping off, but if I had to put one of my money on the low tier mids, I'm going with the Duck Hunt player. And the final player I want to talk about before moving on to the top 8 is going to be Deathspade, and that's because he plays two characters that I like talking about a lot right now. That's going to be Bayonetta and Sora, who are also kind of on polar ends of the spectrum. You have Bayonetta, character that's been having a lot of success recently. You have Bloom, you have Lima, you have Tampa, you have Deathspade, you have guys they've all been doing incredibly well, and you have Sora, who has not been doing so well. So you have Kameme, who's obviously going to be the sole proprietor of the character. He's getting pretty much all the results, and then outside of that, it's pretty much him and Deathspade. Deathspade, I would say, is the best Sora right now in NA, and probably the best Sora of all time in NA. This isn't a character that's had high contention, which is super weird to me because Sora is broken, like potentially top 10 broken, and saying that in the current meta of Smash Ultimate feels pretty crazy to say, but that character is ridiculous, and Deathspade's able to do some of the crazy combos, like I need more Sora in my tournaments because this character is just super, super good. Speaking of characters that need more in tournaments, Roy. Roy has died off super hard this year, so hopefully Goblin will be able to get a top 8 run because I just need to see more Roy. I kind of miss that character, but I want Deathspade to pop off and Goblin, honestly. I want both of these players to excel because they are all playing characters that I am very interested in, but Deathspade, if he does well, I'm able to push my Bayonetta and my Sora propaganda. If Goblin does well, I'm able to say that Roy is back, and if both do well, then it's just going to be a good event. Into the top 8 with our first two players being Peanut and MVD. And as I said earlier with Toast and Kobe, there's a lot of knowns in one person's bracket and a lot of unknowns. And the person with unknowns is going to be Peanut, so let's start with him. Technically, he's played against both Mutace and Sen, but this was 3 years ago. This was 2 years ago. We have no idea how these sets are actually going to unfold. And I actually think that Peanut has a pretty decent chance versus Mutace because pellets are really good versus Peach. Because Peach, even when she is microspacing outside of the pellets range, she's not really getting anything out of that. You're also able to clip her out of her float, which can be incredibly annoying for Peach. Now, it's not a super winning matchup for Mega Man. It may even be losing for Mega Man, but that's one part of it where he is able to excel, and I think Peanut is a player, or rather Peanut is a player, that he will find one crack in your game plan and be able to exploit it super well. So I think it is possible that we could see the upset there. Same thing for Send as well. I think Peanut is a player that can beat a lot of the top talent in this game. He is genuinely incredible when playing at the top level. All these Mega Man players are, I think Mega Man players are simply incredible. Shout out to the MPG as well, who I feel like is seated a little bit low, to be honest, but I think Peanut can pop off at this event. MVD as well, he does have to go against MK Big Boss in the winner side of bracket, and he's got a 2-1 record there. It only really is a 1-1 record because this is so long ago, but he did lose the last encounter. It was game 5. He beat him at Collision. I definitely think that MVD can beat MK Big Boss. He's also beaten Zomba in the past, so he's clearly good versus Rob, and you're definitely going to want to beat MK Big Boss because in the loser side of bracket, he's supposed to go against Andric, and Andric is a player already really scary in bracket because of how fast he is and how hard he hits you. When you are playing Snake, you never, ever want to play against Andric. He is so quick. He applies so much pressure. He just gets on top of you. As you can see for MVD, didn't go amazing last time they played. Now, this was 9 months ago. I'm sure MVD has at least adapted a little bit more to the Falcon matchup, but I don't think that's something that you're going to want to run to in the winner side or the loser side of bracket. Andric is just an incredibly scary player. I think MVD can upset MK Big Boss. I think MVD can beat Mutace if he gets to the winners finals as well. I mean, he beat him at DreamHack Dallas and then had a game 5 set in the reset of Grand Finals. So if MVD is able to get over MK Big Boss, he could be poised to win the event, but if he loses, he's going to have to go against Andric potentially, which is always scary. Next up, you have Send and Andric, starting off with Send, who's supposed to lose to Shiny Mark in the winner side and Cosmos in the loser side. Now, I have their online results pulled up here. For offline results, he's only ever played against Cosmos, and it is an 0-3 record. Aegis does very well versus Nest, though Cosmos has lost to Aegis players, or rather Nest players, in the past, most notably Syrup, so definitely not an impossible upset for Send, but not a great matchup for him. And for Shiny Mark, that's actually a pretty good matchup. Nest does very well versus Pikachu, one of the few characters in the game that you're actually going to see a winning matchup there, but Shiny Mark's been doing very well, and this is online as well. Pikachu's a character that gets way, way, way worse online. Like, way worse online. And though there are certain parts about him that get better, most notably the camping, because everyone's camping gets better online, I think it's going to be a matchup that will be tough for Sen, because Mark is clearly very good at it. But also, it's still a winning matchup for Sen. He has been able to do it in the past. He's also been able to beat the secondary Lucina, which is very important. You got to be able to beat both the main and the secondary counter. So I think Sen can get that upset. On paper, he probably should get that upset, but going off the coin box results, you would favor Shiny Mark a little bit more there. And for Andric, he's supposed to lose to also Cosmos and Shiny Mark. And as you can see, only person he's played there is going to be Shiny Mark, but this was 2 years ago, so it doesn't really matter. Matchup-wise, though, Aegis does very well versus Falcon, and Aegis does very well versus Pikachu. Now, are these unwinnable matchups? Not necessarily, but it's definitely going to be an uphill battle for Andric. But to be fair, Andric is one of the scariest players I have ever seen in the bracket. I need to see this guy at the major level, because all these regionals that he's been going to, he's been farming top 8, top 8, top 8, major upset there, major upset there. Andric is a simply incredible player. I wouldn't be surprised if he was able to upset Cosmos or Shiny Mark, even if it's on paper a tough matchup. He is just so incredibly talented that he can honestly do anything. Next up, we have Shiny Mark and Cosmos. So we'll talk about Shiny Mark in a little bit. I want to talk about Cosmos first, who is supposed to lose to MK Big Boss twice, and he's never played against MK Big Boss before. But as you can see, he does have a 7-1 record versus Zomba. So they are different players, but it is still Rob. It's the general rule of knowing how to play against Rob, but this is a bit of a weird one, especially for Rob as well, because we've had this exact same discussion with MK Big Boss and MK Leo, because MK Big Boss, MK Leo, they're practice partners. They play against each other all the time. MK Leo should be one of the best players in the world versus Rob. MK Leo goes up against Zomba, and he kind of gets owned. It's because he's prepared for that style of MK Big Boss Rob. He's not ready for the Zomba Rob. Now, could this happen to Cosmos? Probably not. Again, they've only played 7-1. They haven't played in 6 months. This is probably just more so Cosmos being very good at the matchup, plus Aegis doing well in there, and I would honestly favor him versus MK Big Boss, but maybe he's not ready for that style of MK Big Boss Rob. Maybe he's more ready for that Zomba Rob for the other Rob players, so that could be a bit of an interesting match, but to be honest, on paper, I would favor Cosmos, and then he does have a decent record versus Mutace, as you can see. It's nothing crazy. It's going to be 4-3 in his favor. Last time they played did actually go to Mutace, but at Leota C, he was able to take it. They have been training kind of back and forth. Leota C is kind of old at this point as well, and the only real result is going to be this 1-2 at Tokyo Smash Bootcamp, though I do think that Cosmos is a player that if he beats MK Big Boss, he could just win this whole tournament. But speaking of players that could win this whole tournament, Shiny Mark, he is going to be my pick to win the thing. And it's not because the bracket is good for him. It's actually because the bracket is bad for him. He has to go against Sen, as I said earlier, probably the worst person he could have got in this entire bracket. I mean, Pikachu just doesn't do super well versus us. I guess if there's like a super good Game Watch that I just missed, that wouldn't be a great draw either. Then he goes into Shiny Mark. I think Peach doesn't destroy Pikachu. It's probably more of an even matchup, but still, it's a bit of a tough pull. But if he's able to get past those two players, which I think he can, I think Shiny Mark is probably going to win this event. Shiny Mark is an amazing player that just doesn't go to a ton of his stuff. I hope to see him perform here, because I just need to see more Pikachu propaganda being pushed, because that character is ridiculously good, and Shiny Mark is the best rep. Also, just for those who are curious, Shiny Mark has never played Cosmos offline and has an 0-1 record versus Mutace, but this was 2 years ago, so again, it doesn't really matter. And we have our top two of MK Big Boss and Mutace, who have never played each other before. You have MK Big Boss, who's down 0-5 versus Leaf Lifetime. Now, to be fair, last time they played was 12 months ago, so this doesn't really mean anything. MK Big Boss has gotten way better since then, but maybe not amazing versus Peach. You have Mutace, though. He's down 0-2 versus Zomba, but has played Anathema a lot. 10-9 record there, and as I kind of mentioned earlier on in the video, this could actually be a detriment, because maybe he's more used to an Anathema style of Rob. The MK Big Boss style of Rob catches him off guard and causes him to lose. You also have Rob being winning in that matchup, so that's another thing that goes into MK Big Boss's favor. It's not a super winning matchup for Rob, though. I definitely would favor him in it, though, but I would still pick Mutace to actually beat MK Big Boss if they do end up playing, because in order for Mutace to actually get that far in the bracket, he would have to fight Peebnut, Shiny Mark, or Sen. So he'd have to beat two incredible players, plus a couple really good players before that. He was clearly playing well. He didn't get Mutace. He was playing good. He got to the winners finals. He's going to be playing peak Mutace. Is MK Big Boss going to be able to beat that? I'm not as confident in that one, so I would favor Mutace if he actually does make it to the winners finals, but MK Big Boss is someone that could still take the tournament. I mean, there's a lot of potential winners here. As I already mentioned, Shiny Mark's my pick to win. Cosmos has a pretty good bracket that we talked about. He could pop off super hard if he shows up. There's a ton of people here that could all perform at the top level, and we're just going to have to wait and see. I thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Sports been absolutely unreal lately. Again, if there's any players that I left out or something that I got wrong, please let me know down below, as well as who you think is going to win the tournament. Be sure to sub, all that yada yada, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.